So despite you not watching Squid Game on Netflix and you watching, let's call it 30 minutes of 10 episodes, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And for those of you that don't know, spoiler alert, because I'm going to tell you, Randy, exactly what happened.
Okay.
Basically, it's a death match pitting 456 people for like millions and millions in Korean currency. It's basically the people that are got nothing left in the tank. They're like, this money's going to change my whole entire life, and I'm going to play in this. And there's different death matches, which basically cuts them down to 2 people and then one finalist, and then they win the money. And things go very, very bad. Well, there's an actual live challenge which put real people in the exact same scenarios, except made for TV. Actually killing them. It's ink splots that says you've been eliminated, and
I want the authentic.
Well, so do we, right? But cage and the whole entire
this is
Roman
some
Coliseum
serious stuff.
So the winner of this past season won exactly. It's $4.56 million. It's basically $10,000 for each individual, and then the finalist won all that money. So at the end of it, it actually said that if you'd like to be cast for the second season of the challenge, go here. I went there. So I hope you all see me on Squid Game The Challenge, the second version of it. I will let you know when and if that does happen. They did say I would have to be away for a maximum of 4 weeks. So, Randy, you're going to have to host a show.
What are we pulling for you? Can we get odds?
That's the whole gimmick. They said, what's your gimmick? Of course there's going to be odds.
That's some serious
So
stuff.
I got 2 things. First off, what do you think if you had to place a line on the over-under or yes-no? Does Randy have Netflix? I guess would be the first question.
Stop. Don't talk. Does Randy have Netflix? The number's going to be yes minus a quarter.
I'm going to say no at minus 2,500.
Randy, do you have Netflix? God damn it.
Take it to the bank. And my second thing is, if I wanted to read subtitles, I just read a book. I don't want to sit there and pop on a show and then have to actually work. So.
Do you want to watch a show that is dubbed in English then?
No, it just looks cheesy.
That's infinitely horrible.
Exactly. So thus why I have not watched Squid Game.
You're missing out on a lot.
I've heard a lot of good things about it, but
This is some serious stuff.
until I can
my
learn
head.
Korean, which I don't think that's happening anytime soon. English is hard enough. So.
I just stick to football. That's the scary stuff. I'm scared.
How many streaming services do you have, Rob?
Yes.
All.
Correct.
I did the math the other day between my wife and my son, and somehow I subscribed to PBS Kids. I didn't even know that was a thing. But I think we have 18 streaming services.
Right.
In total.
And guess what? You're paying more than you did when you had cable.
Yeah, I was paying like $1.20 a month for Charter, and now I think it's like $2.
Don't get me started with Charter. They might get another phone call from me tonight, actually.
It's time for the Bookie and the Bettors show. If you're a sports fan, now it's time to play the odds and make every bet count. New episodes post every Thursday on your favorite streaming service. Now introducing Rob Kowalski, the Bookie, and Randy White, the Bettor.
Hey, welcome back to our show. It's the Bookie and Bettors show. I want to thank you all for joining us once again. I'm your host, Robert Kowalski. I'm joined once again by my best friends, Nick Schulte, Randy White.
Hey,
gentlemen, how are we today?
Great.
Very well.
There's a fast season, and then there's this year. And I don't know if this is just what happens when you get older and weeks start to meld into hours. But here we are in week number 14 of the NFL. Randy, you've given, I already counted over the course of our entire almost dozen episodes. I think episode number 12 is today. You're not winning. Your picks are not actually above 500. Go ahead and defend yourself.
What? I am winning, though, at the book. I've had a great year this year. Great year.
I don't give a rat's ass about your pocket.
I've had a great year.
Our friends that are watching and listening are relying on
Did I
your
not
perspective.
give last week? The play of the week was the Green Bay Packers. Now, we said Chiefs would cover, or win, but not cover.
Correct.
Packers covered, and they won the game outright. Did I not the week before give you the Buffalo Bills were going to cover against the Philadelphia Eagles. Did I not give those picks? I believe I did, if you want to look that up.
This is classic Twitter material, X material, where you just highlight your wins and never talk about your losses.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
This is
right?
how it
Yeah.
goes?
Mhm.
Okay, I got it. Okay, wonderful then. So, I want to talk a bit about NFL, and I want to touch a little bit about college football. So, the Nevada Wolfpack have a brand new head coach, Mr. Choate. Randy, 4 wins, 20 losses in the past 2 seasons is really very difficult to swallow, but here we are. And so a new head coach was clearly in line, and based on the timing from the termination of Coach Ken Wilson to where we are today, it was pretty quick. I almost feel like this was decided a long time ago.
Yeah, well, it was definitely decided last week, and I heard from an insider the beginning of this week. Had Coach Wilson won 3 games, and you've seen some improvement from last year, which, again, he was dealt a bad hand. Let's not forget that. He was dealt a bad hand.
Yeah.
But the coordinator positions were horrible. This team, last year to this year, gave up more points and scored less. So he had the double clause going against him, and that was unfortunate. If they'd have won 3 games, I think he would still be the head coach. And again, as a fan and from the university, it's all about money now, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's everything.
So if you don't have butts and seats and you're not selling NIL money now or getting sponsorships to help fill that gap, you've got to make a change. The sad part about it, again, from a fan's standpoint, is can we wait? And I see a bunch of kids have entered the transfer portal. Can we wait another 3 years again to try to turn this program around? Because that's basically what he's going to be stuck with, a bad deal. Incoming coach, the old players don't want to play for him, so it's going to happen. And again, his recruiting, I don't know anything about the guy. I've heard some good comments. I hear, he is an X's and O's type guy. He does a great job. I don't know about his recruiting efforts. Obviously, he was at Texas.
Right.
But Texas and Nevada, you have to work a little harder to get somebody to come there. So that it's going to be interesting.
Nick, if I told you that you were going to get a new head coach from a Power 5 conference, but he's not the head coach, he's a coordinator. He's the coordinator. You've got a staff that currently exists. So I'm going to put you in the AD seat very quickly. Okay. So you bring in the coach. You have all of the coordinators. You have the entire team. Clear disconnect, even though the press conference that everyone watched, is out there. You could see it was, successful. It got everyone to understand what his perspective was.
Yep.
He's not taking any of Sarkisian's guys from Texas. Let's get that straight. No one's leaving. So he's got to build something completely from scratch, unless maybe he gets an assistant from Texas. But at that point, what improvements are you going to see? So new head coach, same coordinators, same team. What's that going to amount to?
I think Randy hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's going to be a minimum 3 years before we even see the hopes of this program turning around. And I know it was just before signing day when this was announced too. So, I mean, did we get anybody back now at the last minute that had committed to Wilson that says, hey, if I'm a player and, I've been meeting with this coach for 6 months, making my decision, then all of a sudden the day before I'm supposed to sign, the guy who's been talking to me isn't there anymore. I might start thinking twice about doing that. So
early signings, they're not going to be much there. Let's be honest. And the thing I'm really upset about, and again, the Randy White bitch, he's going to stay at the University of Texas through the playoff situation, whether it's one game or 2.
As he should.
So granted, it's a national championship. So I don't care who you are. You can stay up 24/7 if you want. You're not going to be able to recruit and coach a team at that level and try to split it in half.
There's no way.
And I think we're missing college sports, unfortunately, especially, and I call it the mid-majors, if you will. We're dealt a bad hand. And unfortunately, like you said, we're not going to get a Texas athlete to transfer to the University of Nevada.
No,
We've already got a mass exodus of transfers.
I'm not asking for that. As a matter of fact, the way you're looking at it, I think, is different than the way I look at it. You're not anything out there that you see on TV. Okay, you're in the Mountain West. Win the Mountain West, right? Win this conference.
Yeah.
Right? Win this conference. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to go out and play non-conference opponents and think you're going to stay close. Don't even worry about that. Matter of fact, scheduling the USCs of the world
Let's
and
not get ahead of ourselves. I'd like to see at least win 500,
right.
half of
I'm
games
over here
first,
talking about winning the Mountain West, which might not exist in 3 years. You just want to see a 500 record, which is also very fair.
Well,
Come on
here's
now.
another thing to put in perspective. And this was a topic that I had last week. Steve Alford, getting a Steve Alford type deal doesn't happen every day. We were so fortunate to get Steve Alford with the situation that transpired at UCLA. He got a huge buyout. So to come to Nevada for $300,000 was his base salary. Now, granted, there's incentives. You don't get that deal every day. We are so fortunate. And again, a lot of things can change at the end of this year, obviously. But this basketball team right now, it's just unfortunate we couldn't have the excitement level with the football team that the basketball team is putting out. And I'll end it at that as far as my point. But to your point, one other thing, this deal obviously had been happening for a couple of weeks. You don't hire a coach in one day.
I think college football in general is just broken right now. I mean, we got to do something, or they have to do something to fix it. I mean, you have the whole. How do you have a team like Florida State that doesn't get into the playoff?
Well, that'll be fixed next year.
I mean, yeah,
it's going to look great next year. This year it sucks.
Yeah,
It sucks.
Well,
I don't get
and
it.
Here's another gripe. You have all these weeks. From the 7th week on, they start doing the computer picks as to who your top 4, top 5, top 6 teams are. You get to the final week. It's not computers that decide. It's a committee of 13. So it's subjective instead of objective now. And, by the way, this 13 committee field that they have, 5 of them are from the SEC.
You know what they should have done? They should have went to the Randy Weick Tandy 3000.
Well, but I mean, think about it.
Then we would have had the right choices.
This country, everything we do is about money now. It's unfortunate we ruined college sports because of it. And let's be honest. I mean, I'm not the sharpest tack on the wall, let's face it. But you go back as long as we've had the 4. And originally, remember, it was just 2 that went for the national championship. And it used to be they didn't even have to necessarily play each other.
Right.
We go to 4. How many Power 5 conferences are there? 5. So you're always going to have somebody left out. And next year is going to be interesting. It'll be just like the NCAA basketball field. We're going to 12 next year. You'll have 14 teams. 2 are going to get left out. How dare you leave them out? But how can you have, again, I feel bad for the young men from Florida State.
Yep.
Because you're based on your resume for the year, not about whether your quarterback gets hurt. So you've got 86 other kids on scholarship or 85 on scholarship that unfortunately, we lost our quarterback, so we have no chance. When it's built on resume, they had the 3rd toughest schedule, 3rd RPI, if you want to call it RPI, and they don't get in. Yeah. I don't understand it.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the 5 SEC teams, because how much does the SEC get for each bowl?
There's a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money at stake. And you got 5 of the 13. Well, who in the world are they going to vote for?
This is capitalism at its best. And I love
it.
This is great. And you know what? The fact that you're so passionate about this makes this even better. I'm glad that you feel fired up about this, Randy. I really do.
At one time, I know it's hard to believe, but I did go to college.
No, you didn't. I don't believe it.
I did go to college, and I thought I could play at that level. Unfortunately, I couldn't play at that level. But it's a shame when you tell someone it's based on your resume of what you do the year, and the very week that you're selecting teams, well, their quarterback's hurt, so they're not going to be competitive. Unfortunate. Very unfortunate. With
that said, I'm going to tell you about something that actually is fortunate. And that's more content for our listeners at home and our viewers. So, as you could probably think, you could hear me saying like and subscribe. Please do like and subscribe. Week 14, and so basically I'm starting to count down weeks until the playoffs.
Can you believe it's week 14?
Of course
We're
it
this
is.
whole year. Even
So-
Jesus.
I'm getting
So-
older by the minute.
What I want to do is I want to start to open up a little bit more information. And so as we're going to move closer to the playoffs, we're going to have a new segment that's going to appear where we actually have more of our friends at Baldini's that you have probably seen or heard of. We're going to have their picks against the spread in a short segment that's going to be tucked in nicely. And so go ahead and look forward into that. But for now, Randy, Nick, there's a couple of key games this week. Number 14, what I want to go ahead and break down from a point spread perspective first. And so let's go right to the very bottom on Sunday night. The Eagles and the Cowboys, the book at Baldini's has the Cowboys as a 3-point favorite, and the total is 52. A 10-2 team on the road once again, catching points. Woe is the Eagles, some may say. But, Nick, I think you might feel otherwise after seeing last week's debacle for Philly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously the Cowboys are on fire right now. The Eagles probably got knocked down a peg or two after last week's game. Hope everybody listened to my Niners plus 17, by the way. But I don't see how you don't take the Eagles in this matchup. I mean, at 3 maybe, but I've seen it at 3.5. And you get a team that's 10-2.
True.
Granted, they're on the road, and I believe they're 5-1 over the last decade playing in Dallas. So based on the numbers, Dallas should win this game. But I just don't see how you don't take a team that's 10-2 playing the Dallas Cowboys.
Many will say, well, just take a – I mean, look, first off, you got to just play to the schedule, right? And so Dallas is playing who they have on the schedule, and the numbers are exactly what they are. Same thing for Philadelphia. Randy, the Cowboys at home, yes, there's a bunch of Washington games. There's a bunch of New York Giants games. There's an Arizona game in there that was a loss. But they play to their schedule, and it's been a stellar season at home, averaging more than 40 points a game at home and giving up only 15. I have a feeling that you're going to take the flip side of this here, but go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, actually, I would have taken the Cowboys. But with the Eagles being embarrassed last week, and let's be honest, they were embarrassed. The 49ers did everything they wanted in that second half and made it look easy. Cowboys have the same schemes, maybe a different call for the formation, but it's basically the same schemes. That slant route to CeeDee Lamb, they're going to be using that because this secondary for the Eagles, in my mind, and I've said it all year, they're suspect. So you point out the Cowboys can score at home. This game might be 38-30. I think it's going to be a little tougher, but I would have taken the Cowboys had the Eagles not been embarrassed last week.
Okay, so
Would you say this is a must-win game for the Eagles? I mean, because all of a sudden they lose this game. I think now they're not even number one in their division anymore, and they lose the first round bye in the playoffs. So I mean, they go from the number 1 seed to the number 5 seed literally overnight.
very, very good point. You're absolutely right, and especially now as you were looking at week number 14, that is the way things can actually unfold for them should they actually not pick up a victory in Dallas. Yeah. Randy, so you are all in on catching 3.5.
I am.
Same thing here for Nick. Okay, this show is starting.
I really think that the Eagles, they're a good team and they're smart. And after seeing what happened last week, they're going to come out red hot and on fire and flat out win this game, or they're in big trouble.
But let me take you back. If y'all remember, 1st and goal at the 7-yard line. Oh my Lord! You have a delay of game. Now, there was like 29 seconds, 30 seconds. Delay of game, illegal procedure, and a quarterback sack. Or we would be talking about this game, and again, a little bit different. Cowboys would have won that game, at least in my mind. So all these things are in my mind when I'm actually going to bet this week. Yeah. And you look at the fact that, I got to be honest, the 49ers manhandled that offensive line in the second half.
Let's go ahead and actually move straight to that team since we keep circling back to the team from the Bay Area. San Francisco, this one was a number that I think I went a little too high on when I said it as 12.5 hosting the Seattle Seahawks, a total 46.5. That number went down a bit. And so it went down as low as 10.5 before bouncing back to 11. So it's that gray area, right? From a bookmaker's perspective, you take a look, any number from 12 to like 12.5 down to 11 is kind of basically the same, regardless of 2-point conversions or whatnot. So Seattle's super feisty. This is a division game. Did I make this number too high, Nick?
I think you might have, just because interdivisional matchup, and most every time I've seen these two teams play, it's usually a pretty close game. I mean, there's been some blowouts, obviously, over the years, but, I mean, they play each other at least twice a year, sometimes a third time in the playoffs. So I think it comes down to a one-score game, but, I mean, that 49ers defense is just insane right now. So, I mean, if the offense gets rolling and that defense can keep the Seahawks in check, then, yeah, I think that number is right on the money. But if they played this game 100 times, I would say 80 out of 100, it'll be within a one-possession game.
Randy, do you think that this game also stays within double digits, or are you feeling that this is not going to be close?
You know, this was one of my losses on Thanksgiving week. If you go back, and whether we believe it or you don't, if you go back the last 10 years, okay, interdivision games where they play each other twice in a period of 3 weeks, it's usually a split.
10 years?
10 years.
No me diga.
66% of the time, they split. So I'm not saying that the Seahawks will win, but again, you got sandwich game. Do they not have the Rams next week?
Wait, is this the Randy White look ahead?
Well,
is the look ahead back in the
I think
mix?
they have the Cardinals next week. Is it Cardinals or Rams next week?
This sounds like the look ahead.
You talk about
I'm telling you, just from fact.
Yes.
The Niners?
When you play within 3 weeks, and there's another game you have to consider too.
2 weeks from today?
Lions and Bears are in the same situation as the 49ers Seahawks.
Oh, my.
But if you look at it, yes.
You can't say
it's
the Bears
tough to
are
blow a team out twice in 3 weeks.
But the Bears have we'll call it a lack of talent, and I think the Seahawks actually have a decent team together. They just might not have the best
the
team.
The 12
right now.
definitely was too strong. And I lost on this a couple of weeks ago, I love the Seahawks to cover that. You're going to have a letdown to some extent playing the biggest game of the year. I don't care if you're at home or not. You're going to have a letdown.
This is 2 games, and both of you are on dogs. 2 games in a row.
And you are correct. Next week, the Niners play the
Cardinals?
The Cardinals. We call it bird hunting season if you're a Niners fan right now, because it was Seahawks,
Yes.
Eagles, Seahawks, Cardinals, and then Christmas night we play the Ravens.
Some may say that was my pick to make it to the Super Bowl, which, by the way, actually we'll touch on that in a little bit. I wanted to take a look at your guys' opinions on playoff bound teams. It's a little bit mixy. It's a little bit milky right now, but I have a power ranks that I've made way back to the NFL draft, and not surprising, there's a team here named San Francisco that I have so significantly higher than anyone else that I haven't seen a disparity like this between 1 and 2 in a very, very long time. One more game I wanted to take a look at before we actually look at some playoff implications. The Bills and the Chiefs, speaking of teams that are kind of on the wrong side of the ledger the last couple of weeks. Kansas City, I opened up 2.5. I knew for a fact if this was going to be 3, I was just going to get a deluge of money on the Buffalo Bills. But I opened at 2.5. That was actually too high as well. Again, from a bookmaking perspective, typically 2.5 to 1.5 is basically the same. But Kansas City now, 1.5 points, the favorite, and the total 48.5. Do we see a clean sheet from Josh Allen, Randy? I'll go ahead and position it that way, and I think if the answer is yes, I'm going to get a Bills money line bet from you.
Again, the Chiefs were embarrassed too last week.
100%.
They're at home. I don't know if Taylor Swift was at the game or not.
She was.
Okay.
You couldn't resist, could you?
I had to bring it up.
Of course.
The one thing I am very confident on, this game soars over 47 or 48.5 now. Soars over it. This is going to be a high-scoring affair, and I like the Chiefs here. I'm actually going the other way. Again, they were embarrassed last week. And again, we talked about this almost every week. If you look at the top 5 last year to the top 5 this year, with the exception of the 49ers, there's some differences. These teams are not the same teams. And The Chiefs have a great defense, but they've been a little suspect on the offensive side. You take away Kelsey, they've taken away everything.
Yeah, they just need
And
somebody to
guys
catch a ball.
dropping passes wide open, not running the right routes. The Chiefs at home, I've got to go. I've got to go with Mahomes on this one.
Okay, Nick?
I guess we're just picking everything the same this week. So I also like the Chiefs. I mean, they just got a little embarrassed last week. I think it's kind of same situation we might see from the Eagles. I think they're going to come out red hot and on fire. And the Buffalo Bills have just been garbage this entire season. So I just don't see them. I do agree. I do like the over in this one, but I think it's Kansas City gets out to an early lead and then just kind of milks the clock. And then I think Josh Allen probably comes alive in the second half.
I have a question for both of you, though, and you more so because you know it a little bit deeper with injuries. Mahomes this year, he's not the scrambler that he has been in the past 2-3 seasons. He almost looks like he's laboring. And I haven't seen injury reports where they've listed him injured, but there's something going on there. He is timid to take a hit. So I don't know if it's from, the big hits that he took last year, but if you watch this quarterback, you don't see him out there in open field and wanting to scramble to run.
Well, it's a good point. I mean, you brought it up earlier. It's the NFL has now gone through, 50 quarterbacks this year?
Right.
And I think somebody as Mahomes' talent, stature, whatever you want to call it, he recognizes that, and he kind of knows that, hey, I mean, he's the glue that really makes that work in Kansas City, and if he's not there, they don't have a team. So I think he's a little
But I don't know if
forward-thinking.
it's a case of not wanting to do it. He almost looks like he's laboring. And it almost looks like it's a knee, a foot. If you watched him last week, especially going to the right, he's not the same quarterback.
I don't think he's the same quarterback. Look, this whole league is about attrition, right? Everyone's on the clock basically from play to play. And I don't know that it's still something that's lingering from last year, or if he was very specifically told, hey, you know what, go through your reps. If you don't see anything there, just throw it away. Then again, Pacheco's probably at peak form right now as a running back.
100%.
So if it's going to be a rush, it's going to be to him or his backup, and definitely not to Mahomes. I don't really think that unless he sees just an open ocean, with no linebacker cores, and he could pick up 7 or 8 yards. I don't think he really wants to run anymore. I don't think he should.
And it's funny you bring that up. One of the publication services this week was looking at it from the perspective of Andy Reid. Now, Andy Reid, if he had to do it all over again, would he pay the big bucks to keep Tyreek Hill as his number one locked-on receiver? Because he hasn't been the same quarterback once he left.
I mean, they won a Super Bowl without him, though.
Yes, exactly. Touche.
What? And I always look at this. Teams now, a year later, are really trying to develop and comprise schemes to stop Kelsey. So now opposing coaches say, we've stopped Kelsey. That's the key. These other guys can't hurt us. Just, again, my thought.
That's all very, very good. And it does make an awful lot of sense. They're definitely not the same offense that they were last year or in previous years, that's for sure. So I got 3 games, and all 3 of you are on the same side. So in what I'm hoping is a little bit more of a robust opposite foil kind of a conversation.
I'm going to give you one.
Please, just go ahead.
And if you want to bet the house, the kids, I'm thinking about betting my wife everything. The Lions will bounce back this week. They are my number 1 play on the whole board.
At 3.5. And so everyone knows and understands exactly what Randy White just said. The Detroit Lions, 3.5 points better in Chicago. They win by 4 or more. And this is one of those bona fide stamps. Take it out.
It's from my computer.
And it's also from the computer.
Yeah.
So it's from the computer, and it's in the section of bet the house, the mortgage. Okay. Nick, you want to go ahead and give me a similar, but maybe we could just make a trademark, a different kind of a call where something jumps out so significantly that you're that strong on one side or another.
Honestly, I really like I like the Broncos money line getting at plus 120 going up against the Chargers this week. So I know they're another interdivisional matchup. Play each other a couple times a year. Broncos have looked better in recent weeks than they have at the beginning of the season. So I'd like the Broncos money line.
Denver Broncos, we opened up as it's the other way. The Chargers were the 3-point favorite, and that got swallowed whole instantly, and it got bet down to 2.5. So for those of you looking for that 3, sorry, unless you wanted to buy it, which is going to come at a significant tax. So 2.5 right now.
And if you want a point spread game, I mean, Texans all day over the Jets.
This one actually went against you. You know that.
Yeah.
But perhaps maybe that's the reason why. Mm-hmm. They were as high as 6 before some real big opinions came in on the New York Jets, bringing it down to 3.5. Maybe this is the number that you're comfortable laying. Okay, so let me present this to you, and then we'll move on. Mm-hmm. Would you have laid 6 with the Houston Texans?
Yes.
Turn out the lights, party's over. They're saying that a lot in New York right now for both teams.
How are the Knicks doing? Are they any good?
Huh. I just want to know, are they in professional sports, any of these franchises?
Yeah.
What's with the hate on New York?
I'm just asking a question.
I'm asking a question, too.
Turn out the lights, parties. Neither one of them can play. Now, I'll give DeVito. It sounds like he should be in TV.
I thought we were talking about the Knicks.
What? No, I'm talking about New York in general. He asked a question about New York in general. You did.
No, I didn't. I didn't bring that up.
You said I was beating up on New York. What?
Now we are. Yes. Okay. Now we're on to this chapter.
When's the last time New York actually won a championship in something?
Giants.
06?
Mm-hmm. Not too long ago. Okay. Relatively speaking. When did Dallas win a Super Bowl last, Randy?
Well, way back.
Did they have the
Troy
3-point line?
Troy, with the Troyan boys.
I think it was 95.
I'm serious. I don't know Johnson. Johnson's the owner of the Jets, correct? Would he?
Yes.
The decision-making he has had, because he's been involved, and the general manager, why in the world would you put all your marbles on the table to draft this kid from BYU? Can somebody help me understand
Well, they fixed that. They brought in Aaron Rodgers.
Well, they brought that in. But again, you laid everything out a couple years ago when you took this Wilson kid, Zach. He's terrible. He's 5'0", and you built a franchise around this kid. He can't even complete a 20-yard out. Randy White at 64 can do that.
That's heat.
I think it just comes back to the draft in general. It's obviously, I think your defensive guys, generally they get drafted higher up or usually generally standouts. But how many times, you draft 5 QBs in the first round, 3 years later, how many of them are still in the league on average? I'm going to say less than 10%. So I just think that, it's a crapshoot. You roll the dice. I remember the one that I'm always hurting on is way back when the Niners had the overall pick and we picked this guy, it was Alex Smith, and with the number 2 overall pick, the Green Bay Packers took Aaron Rodgers. So, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's always easy to literally play Monday morning quarterback.
Why wouldn't this be? And I got to bring this up after watching the game last week. Does Parsons not remind you a lot of Lawrence Taylor? Really.
He plays very angry football.
He's
yes, he does.
A beast.
Yes.
And they can move him around. He reminds me so much of Lawrence Taylor. And again, you say, man, if we could find another one of those guys in the draft, and then you look at the 49ers with their front 5, 6. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah,
and then they added more during the trading deadline.
Yeah, scary.
So, all right. So then to move on to some championship aspirations, if we split it down the middle and we have the AFC on one side, the NFC. So let's save the NFC because that seems to be a little bit more cut and dry. The Chiefs, the Bills, was going to be the Bengals, but not anymore. The Ravens.
Mm-hmm. Dolphins.
It was the Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty well-balanced diet of franchises there. Who jumps out first that you see as a AFC championship contender, Nick?
I got to say Miami. I think they just have the speed. And right now, I just feel like the AFC teams aren't. Ravens, obviously, you can make an argument for, but I feel like they're not consistent week to week. You never know what team you're going to be playing against. But I think at the end of the day, come playoff time, I think the speed and the scheme that Miami can run with, I think they're gonna do some damage. And
with 14 weeks now played, Randy, and those clubs, unless there's another that jumps out, who do you have in the AFC Championship game?
I have the Ravens. I had them at the beginning of the year. I still like Lamar Jackson. I thought from game one this was going to be a better year for him. When it gets into a defensive struggle, this defense can play for the Ravens. So I still have them slightly above. I've dropped the Chiefs way down. So I have them and then the Dolphins. But I still like what talent they have on this roster on both sides of the ball.
You don't think Mahomes has that Brady factor of, come playoff time, he's got just a different mentality or something that just
I do,
on.
But what worries me is what I've seen these last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
When they're double teaming, and you've seen Kelsey triple teamed last week. Right now, they don't have somebody that jumps up and says, I'm going to take over a game. Yeah. Scantling can't catch a pass. So that scares me when you get into a playoff, and especially when you have to go on the road. If the Chiefs are not playing at home, watch out.
I think there's any free agents or anybody that they can sign because literally you just need somebody that can run and catch.
I guess so. You're absolutely right. It's actually all it is now.
If they just had one extra guy. Because like you're talking about, you got Pacheco, who's looking really good right now. Kelsey's arguably one of the best tight ends in the league, but you're really at that point a two-dimensional offense, and the entire world's been watching the last 3 weeks and just seen drop after drop after drop. So,
and it's unfortunate because the Chiefs' defense is getting better every week.
Yep.
Their front is very strong. I questioned their secondary, a few weeks ago, but they've definitely improved. But this offensive side of the ball, and then you get to a point, and let's be honest, we're talking how timid Mahomes is right now. You get in the playoffs, you're going to see him trying to do everything. Maybe he's going to try to do too much. And I think that puts the Chiefs kind of at a question mark in the playoffs.
Okay. So Miami and a nice vote of confidence for Baltimore. Now let's put aside, let's go to the NFC before we wrap here. And let's just take the 49ers and just put them to the side and give them a virtual bye for now. Who's playing the Niners in the NFC Championship game? Would it be the Eagles? We've just seen that matchup. Would we be the Cowboys? Maybe it's the Lions. I know, Nick, you came in strong just about 5 minutes ago thinking they're going to come back as one of the bigger performances, at least from a point spread perspective, in week number 14. Still a really great body of work in the season. Maybe I'm missing somebody else that could be a latecomer to this, but you really can't see many other contenders. Randy, who else could I be missing here? Again, keeping the Niners out of the picture for a moment.
Well, and again, back to this week. This is one of the cool things when you talk about these key games. This Eagle-Cowboy game, I think, decides really one or two.
Okay.
So whoever loses this, that seeding's going to hurt them because they're going to have to go on the road.
Yep.
So you got to say the Eagles at this point, if the Eagles win. Now, if the Cowboys were able to pull off, which I'm a little worried about just because the Eagles were embarrassed, then they got the forefront. So this game has a lot at stake. Who's going to determine that second seed?
How about right now, I will bet you $100 that the Cowboys yet again do not win a playoff game this year.
You and Stephen A. We're going to put you guys on the same show.
When's the last time the Cowboys won a playoff game? Was it 98?
I'm watching it. You could take that bet. I'll book it right now for you.
What's that?
They will not win a playoff game. The Dallas Cowboys.
They're out in the first round.
I disagree if they get a home field game.
Fine. The stipulation accepted.
You said win one.
Yeah.
If they get a home field game, they win.
Okay.
They go on the road, I would agree.
Not Green Bay beating them in the first round 20-17.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think what Green Bay did last week, great for them, and I'm happy for Romeo Doubs, great Nevada player. But let's be honest. They're a different team at home than they are on the road. You give them a playoff game at home, I would take the Cowboys in a heartbeat. Okay. But That's what makes this week so interesting, is this game has a lot at stake.
I know we wanted to talk a little bit more about the Niners, but everyone's kind of already kind of familiar with what they've done, and that's why I kind of put them aside in the
They're
pocket.
already trying on rings.
That's a little premature.
No, I'm telling you, Purdy's going to get the last pick in the NFL draft is also going to be the MVP this year.
100%.
I don't know what your odds are on that.
Plus 350 to be, as a matter of fact.
I'm telling you right now, this guy.
I think what he did
offense,
last week in Philly if there was any doubters, I think he just kind of showed them. So.
Okay. Well,
pulling for him.
Everyone at home, I'm hoping to get a little bit more of a split down the middle on these games that I chose, but was not meant to be. We'll see if I could do a little bit better in week number 15. But in the meantime, thanks again so much for joining us. If you like what you see, of course, hit that like and subscribe button. Hope to see you again next week. Enjoy the week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Bookie and the Bettors Show. New episodes post every Thursday on your favorite streaming service.